Hi, I'm Dexter, and that's Tom, the one with the short hair. And we're from All I.T Services. And if you'd like to know more about us and what we do, you can visit allit.services. And today, for a segment that I call Business Stuff You Should Know, we have the super fabulous Jessica Kidd from Harp and Sunnyside, a creative collective operating out of Melbourne, Australia, and also New Zealand. Jess, how's it going?
Right, good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problems. Now, it's something that I should have asked a long time ago because I have known you for many years. Where did you get the name from?
Harp and Sunnyside?
Yeah.
Well, Harp is my own business. So I have a copywriting agency that I set up kind of as a freelancing gig during COVID, just like everybody did. And Sunnyside is my ex-colleague and friend. He has his own design agency as well. Sunnyside Studios, so the two of us came together and that's what
okay. Yeah. So we're going to throw some ideas to you. We're going to listen to your knowledge and helping us and the listener market their business better and through digital strategies and branding and all of that sort of stuff. So what exactly does Up and Sunny do?
So we're a creative branding agency, essentially. We work with predominantly property developers, but also a few outlying clients in corporate, lifestyle brands, all sorts of stuff really, but property is kind of our bread and butter. So we work with clients to prepare strategy behind their name and brand, and then all of the creative assets and marketing materials to put their best foot forward.
Okay. Yeah. Let's elaborate on that a little bit. I have done quite a lot of work in the real estate space, and that's kind of how I know you from. Take us through the journey of a client approaching you and saying, we've got a new project that we'd like to brand and market. We'll go through you. What's the steps and stages that you go through to get that?
So all of our projects will start with a brief-in meeting first, and that will be an opportunity for us to work with the client to understand their vision and what they're hoping to achieve from the project. We'll also dive into all of the finer details about the project itself, the product, the audience, and their timelines in terms of sales goals. So once we've got a really good, understanding of the project as intimately as possible, we will go away and research the shit out of everything to do with that project and its location and the history of that project site as well. And the first step usually is coming up with a name for the brand or the project. And once that is done, everything else kind of steamrolls pretty fast from there.
I have heard of a podcast a while ago. I listened to one and they were talking about how, I can't remember the name of the company, but when they were naming the CPU, so Intel's a CPU manufacturer, when they were going through the different stages and the names, things like Pentium and Celeron, they had engaged a company to help name these particular brands or particular chips. And they were spending upwards of a couple of $1 million, something along those lines, trying to get a name. So how do you do that in that sense? And how much creative license do you have? Like, do they look at you as the experts, or do they kind of have their own ideas and are looking at you to kind of mold it into what they're seeing? Because I do see some projects that look similar, but then I see ones that are just totally out of left field, which I do enjoy. So how much creative license do you have with these clients?
Well, every client and project is unique. The majority of our clients currently give us complete creative freedom, and they, rely on us for our creative approach. That's why they come to us. You're right. Sometimes names are completely out of left field. Sometimes they're made up. And sometimes they are something that is already existing or directly related to that project itself, like the street address or the suburb, or maybe a plant species that's native to that area, something like that. But look, a lot of the time they're just pulled out of the air. We might find an idea and run with it and then elaborate further until it's this crazy brand that is completely unique.
Interesting. I always look to real estate as, sort of for small and medium-sized business, almost like the cutting edge of marketing and branding and what have you. They, just because these organisations tend to pour a lot of money into it, they're obviously they themselves are marketing a very marketable property everyone's love. particularly, in New Zealand or Australia. And then, of course, you've got the real estate brands and projects and what have you, and it's a super competitive space, right? You look at this, like, from the outside, who has absolutely no idea, you look at this stuff and it's super smick. I'd imagine the competition, you've got to be pretty, you've got to have a pretty good product to stand out in this day and age.
Yeah, absolutely. The market is super competitive. It's nice that you have the impression that these brands are super smick and there's huge budgets behind them, because a lot of the time we're really making small budgets go as far as possible, and that's where creative license is super important, to give that impression, to sell an aspirational lifestyle, I suppose, and give the look and feel of a place that people really aspire to live. It's sometimes we really are clutching at straws. And that's, I guess, why we work so closely with these developers to guide them in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, another observation from the outside looking in, I'm constantly amazed at photography and videography and what have you, and how far that's come.
Yeah.
And how quality people, as you say, the budgets are sometimes low, but the quality of some of this stuff it's been around for a number of years now, right? But people are being able to get amazing quality, particularly on completed projects and what have you. It's quite incredible how far that's come, and I suppose it's probably been pushed along by COVID, and even us sitting here right now, we're doing stuff at high resolution, and what was previously getting some of this stuff was costing a fortune. I suppose the cost of some of this stuff to get a pretty smick looking result is come down a lot. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, absolutely. Even in the last 5 to 7 years, I would say the quality of the production of not only video and photography, but renders, and Dex, VR quality stuff, it's come such a long way just in the last few years. And it is definitely more affordable than it's ever been. Many years ago, I guess pre-COVID, you'd be spending upwards of, 20,000 to produce photo-like quality renderings and VR stuff. And now, not necessarily using offshore mediums, but there are so many different platforms that we can rely on to produce a really elevated, high-res image for a project that doesn't cost a bomb. It's amazing. We're really fortunate to be in that position. My business partner's background's in photography, or one of them is in photography, and I guess having that photographer's eye really helps when it comes to the final production of images and videos and renders and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Jess, I'm curious as to your creative process, because I find the stuff that we're doing now, even just chatting, I find all of this sort of stuff, content creation, I love it. I find it super fun. So getting back to that project that a developer has given you, you're thinking of a name. How do you brainstorm those ideas? Do you sit around amongst some beers and coffees and teas and just, throw ideas out there and see what sticks? Like, I'd love to know what your creative process is.
I guess pre-COVID, when we all worked in the same space, we used to kind of have that sort of open boardroom collaboration, fun studio approach, but now we all work remotely from home, so it's not quite like that. And it's not quite as glamorous. It can just be staring at a screen for 12 hours until something sticks. It's fun. It's absolutely fun. And I think that's why developers can take it so far. And I guess why the marketing is of such a high level when it comes to property is because it is such a fun game to play. And the creative process can look like separate team members involved in a project going away and doing their own research and development, and then coming together and sometimes bringing those ideas together and merging them into something that's really cool and special. And other times it might just be an individual creative who really has had a spark of inspiration, and we support them in taking it to that next level.
Interesting. Talk us through the social media aspect of just switching up a little bit. Obviously, again, property, as I see, is, from a business perspective on the social media side of things, property is probably sort of one of the leaders where it's, heavily driven. You've only got to do a search on, real estate. I've been through the process, and, every single project and real estate agent and real estate agency is on socials and quite successful. It's from what I understand, it's a market that drives a lot of value for these people in terms of new business and leads and all that sort of stuff. Transition from print media doesn't even seem that all that long ago, where again, big cost. What's the process in terms of socials? Is it still very, very important in terms of conversion of actual, obviously there's a lot of marketing and it looks good and it feels great and all that sort of stuff, but is it actually converting to dollars and cents for these people?
Yeah, there's definitely a place for socials. I wouldn't say it's the be all and end all for a project though, but it plays a part and it is a vital component. It plays a few roles. One from a community engagement perspective, organic content that resonates with an audience locally is really important, and that can be a driver in closing sales on its own. But then the paid advertising component is also really helpful. With socials, Meta especially, we can really target audiences when it comes to digital campaigns down to the finest details. We work with a really great digital agency in Melbourne, Aperitif, and they're fantastic at really understanding who the audiences are and then targeting them right down to geography, interests, and retargeting audiences. In terms of lead generation, yes, it's great, but there is so much content out there, it sometimes can impact the quality of the leads being generated from social. So it's a fine line between, getting some great engagement on socials, but then transferring that into a convertible lead. Facebook can be, and Instagram, a little hit and miss from that perspective. But in terms of engagement, it's with the community, it really goes a long way and it is super helpful. And it's just getting more and more effective.
If we find it out, and we'd be interested to get your thoughts on this, is that not necessarily in our industry and what have you, but the social and obviously, IT and security and all this sort of stuff is a pretty dry topic to a lot of people. But we find the social component quite important, not necessarily as a lead driver of business, but really a validation of, okay, yeah, these people are really serious. They've got a presence. They know what they're talking about, all that sort of stuff. So it's not necessarily someone comes across us and they're like, oh, geez, that's a great video or that's a great piece of content. I'll direct contact them off that. It's, they see it, they talk to somebody else, and then they validate via looking at some stuff. And then, traditionally it's coming back through traditional methods like picking up the phone or sending someone an email and getting it that way. It's been hugely beneficial. So I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but it's hard to quantify that, right? And I imagine property and, some of this stuff that you do is no different.
It is hard to quantify, but as you'll know, performance analytics are very helpful. It plays a really great role in terms of brand awareness and driving traffic to various platforms from socials.
Just to touch on our industry, I know you probably don't know tech all that well, but it's a pretty, as I said, it's a dry industry, like it's, sort of no one wakes up in the morning and goes, geez, I really want to research cybersecurity today. What's your thoughts on dry industries and trying to market businesses that are super dry in their nature?
I think there is a creative way of presenting any business, regardless of the industry and how dry it might come across to the, public eye. Any business can create a story, whether it's based on fiction or not. And sometimes a small, spark of inspiration from the founder can be enough to drive an entire story behind a brand. So there are definitely creative approaches to, pushing a more compelling story behind any brand and industry. And really all it takes is a great tagline or a catching marketing campaign to get some extra attention for any organization. It's all it takes is a little creative approach and an open mindset.
Just since COVID, how has the project marketing scene changed? Like, are you still doing as much printed material? Are you focusing more online, digital, social? Is what Tom mentioned. Are there any other avenues that you're exploring or at least using as an advertising medium, or is it still the same?
There, initially, after we all came out of lockdown, particularly in Melbourne, the market was really tough. And I think everybody across the board, regardless of their roles, from architects to real estate agents to agencies like us, would have experienced the same challenges. Since budgets have remained considerably tight, depending on the project and the client and the size of the project as well. So it has taken a little bit more creative thinking and strategy to get projects out there, cutting through the competition while sticking to what is a tighter spend. In saying that, the same mediums still play a role. Yes, I agree, print has perhaps had its day. However, when people are investing a huge amount of money, their life savings into their first home or second or forever home, taking something away with them in terms of a brochure or a catalogue for a house and land purchase or whatever it might be, is that tangible, treasure that they'll take with them. So print is still playing a small part, but in terms of initial interest in the top of the funnel, it's purely digital. Of course, that's how we're capturing the initial attention, and it's not until we're kind of further down that print is having that impact. But budget is probably where COVID has struck the most impact.
Yep.
Of course, the market's still as competitive as it ever has been. There was a little lull for a while when there was so much uncertainty, but that certainly picked up across, for us, all of our clients, from land to apartments to boutique townhouses to whatever else. People still need somewhere to live. So, yeah.
All right, let's stick with digital, Jess. Website, socials, EDM. Are you still covering all those bases? If you are you doing others? And give me a rough indication as to what order you would put in terms of priority. I'd be curious.
Yeah, okay. They all are still very valid and daily activities for all of our clients. EDMs are a great way of introducing a project to the market and then nurturing existing databases, although you need those databases to start. The standard platforms like realestate.com, Open Lot Domain, apartment developments, all of those real estate websites play a really great role in introducing a project to the market and then generating leads and continuing that brand awareness over the short and long term. And in terms of social advertising and Google, for example, retargeting is a really strong component that we continue to use across all of our projects, and we recommend that regardless of, I guess, budget and socials. Look, if you're having a social media account for a project, it needs to be maintained and nurtured, and a lot of our clients perhaps don't have the resourcing. When it is available, great. It's really great, like I mentioned earlier, at nurturing and supporting and driving community engagement and awareness and driving traffic back to other platforms, for example, a project's website. But it really needs that constant flow of content. We all absorb it multiple times a day, and it needs to be continuous to capture the attention and also to keep the projects in people's algorithms. So it's it takes there's no one stop shop. It takes multiple avenues to cover all elements and get, I guess, eyes to a project from every possible direction.
Also through, again, coming from, just our perspective is we find, we're owning a small business, but we try and do some really polished, what we've determined as, the polished stuff and then some off-the-cuff stuff. And surprisingly, what we've noticed is, and I'll tie it back to the project theme, but, the off-the-cuff things, and I've followed a few projects, and I don't know what their stats are like, but our off-the-cuff stuff that might be a little bit rough around the edges or, unprompted seems to be performed very, very well from a reach perspective. Obviously, the stuff that you do is very polished and obviously it has a place. But and I also follow a number of personalities in the real estate space that really nail the socials well. And what I watch just out of interest, because I've sort of been attuned to it consciously now, not rather subconsciously, is that you tend to watch that off-the-cuff updates of sites and properties and what have you. What's your take on that? Obviously, there's a time and a place for the really polished content and the sort of ad hoc off-the-cuff stuff?
Yeah, you're on the money for sure. And audiences love to see organic, natural content, and they particularly like it when it comes from the founders or the people delivering a project to market. And I guess that's relevant across all industries outside of property and real estate as well. We recently have launched a project for another client outside of property, and the founders have been really great at presenting themselves on camera. The engagement for these campaigns have been unbelievable. It's putting these, particularly for Australian businesses where we all like to support local, and it's really great to see stories of Australians really doing well. It's having a public face, a person that you can connect with, resonate with, understand, you have that emotional connection with. It really gives a different perspective to a project. And you're right that I guess lo-fi content goes a long way. It can be some of our best performing content. We could spend thousands and thousands of these beautifully produced images and video pieces, and then we could just have this iPhone filmed piece of content from an event, and it just skyrockets. So it's a really interesting avenue, and absolutely there is a place for both, depending on the audience. Yeah.
Interesting. So I understand you do work across Australia and New Zealand.
Not so much in New Zealand. We kind of dabble, but Australia is obviously a larger economy, and things are elevated a little bit more. I think that Australia really sets the benchmark in terms of project marketing done well. It's unlike anything else in the world. The States doesn't compare, Europe, I don't think either. That Australia really sets the benchmark in property marketing done well.
Yeah, I follow a few, again, real estate figures in the States, and you probably know Ryan Serhant in New York, and I follow his stuff, and he does a lot of project marketing stuff. And these projects are projects that are, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And I often look at the marketing and go, geez, it's pretty average compared to what we do here in Australia. And obviously they have massive budgets. It's quite peculiar.
Yeah, at the same time, though, they know their markets, and if that's the quality of the content and creative that's going to connect with their audiences, then it makes sense. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. From our perspective, it pains us seeing these campaigns for these unbelievable projects, these architectural wonders, and it's like this, what we would consider very average marketing behind it. It hurts our souls as creatives. It's a real shame. And look, from time to time we have reached out and worked with the odd offshore contact and produced the marketing materials for them. But it is very different in Australia. We're kind of an economy of our own when it comes to the way that we market projects.
Jess, I'm going to throw you a curly one. AI. What are your thoughts on it? It's obviously changed multiple parts of the services you provide. Have you used it? Are you using it? Are clients approaching you with it and saying, we did this in AI, can you help us out? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, AI is a really great tool, and we definitely use it from time to time. It plays a really great role, just like any other tools in our toolbox, and it's getting better and better. It's really helpful from an efficiency perspective. It can also give you a different set of eyes, a robotic set of eyes. So it definitely plays a role, and I think anybody in our industry would be silly not to take advantage of the tools that are available to us, particularly as we progress digitally as well. Yes, clients have come to us more so. I've written something on ChatGPT. It's not working. Can you fix it up? And look, it's pretty. If for the average person using something like ChatGPT, it perhaps isn't going to spit out the best result. If you are experienced in AI software in the way that professionals like us deem ourselves to be, there is a way of using these sorts of platforms to really elevate or at least help with productivity. But generally speaking, if somebody does send me something they've created with AI without the backing of experience, we can see it right away. It's instantly recognizable that it was created by AI. But like I said, there's definitely a role for it to play. It is super helpful, and you'd be silly not to.
I suppose it's, changed the copywriting industry, and I think everyone probably, I'm not sure, but I've had a number of people say, they sort of freaked out when it first come along and thought, gee, it's the end of copywriters and what have you. But at the end of the day, it's still, even if, as you rightly point out, if AI is producing some of this stuff, you've still got to, the inputs are still important, right? You've still got to, it might generate content, but you put in average input, it's still going to produce average outcome. I started to see AI with email and stuff, and you can pick it a mile away. It's you don't need to be a rocket science to work out that it's what it's done. So, what's your thoughts on copyright and AI? Will it eventually? I mean, it's difficult question to answer, but is it changed copywriters as such in their industry?
I am a copywriter, so I had this many times, and when chat in particular became a public conversation, the number of times I was asked, especially by perhaps older generations, oh, going to be out of a job soon, what are you going to do? These sorts of comments. And no, it's not something that I've ever been fearful of as a copywriter, and I don't think my colleagues in the industry are either, because it is a tool. We can use it to elevate the content that we're producing. There is also an issue with plagiarism. Obviously, AI has to take this information from somewhere, and their content, the content that is produced, may not always be appropriate because of the issue of plagiarism. It could be plucked from multiple sources and reproduced almost identically. So this is an issue when it comes to SEO content creation, which is something that we look after as well. So we need to be hyper aware of that. But as a copywriter, no, it's not something that I am worried about. More so, it's exciting, and it's a tool that can really help us with productivity. Sometimes it can be used to help us brainstorm ideas, and we're super excited about where it's going. It definitely doesn't take the place of creatives. There is still that human element that is required. And that's, I guess, demonstrable in all of the projects that we produce. AI can, at this stage, can only achieve so much. We don't know what the future is going to look like, but I think it's exciting.
I think my takeaway from it is that, in terms of the copywriting stuff, the actual text and, the copy is probably even a small component of it, right? It's all the research and the feeling and tone that needs to be, which is so important to copy rather than just text on a page. It's probably a small part of it. So it's I mean, as you say, who knows where it goes? I'm probably more particularly interested in, particularly a field like yours, what some of the the AI generated imagery and stuff can do based off. It's probably early days, but that's probably where it gets exciting, and it just drives the cost of all this stuff downwards, where less people are needed to generate images and things like that. That's probably where the biggest effect is on imagery and things.
Yeah, I think so, but it still does take that human approach to, I guess, exploring these creative ideas, and AI can certainly help implement them, but there definitely is still a need for a person to put the idea into it first, depending on the project. I mean, when it comes to creative imagery, we've seen some hilarious examples of 3D renderings and even AI produced lifestyle images, for example, with figures missing body parts and whatnot. So it's not quite there yet, but look, when it does come into play, it's going to be amazing. You're right, from a cost saving perspective, in particular, but also in terms of accessibility. And perhaps accessing and having the ability to generate images that may not have been available within fixed budgets in the past.
I think AI is going to give you carte blanche to go even harder in the paint with creativity, Jess.
Yeah,
I think in order to stand out more, you have to be more creative than what ChatGPT can actually create. And I think that's going to be a fun aspect of using it in the future. I'm just going to bring you back a little bit. You mentioned SEO, and I did remember that you actually did that. Now, there was an announcement, I think it was a week or two ago, and it's totally cool if you don't really have an opinion yet on it, but Google made an announcement that they'll be using Gemini, their sort of AI engine, more for their search. And Google almost saying, I did listen to a couple of podcasts about this, saying how Google will now collate bits of information from the websites and basically show you the information rather than allowing you to, say, look at a website, then go back, then look at another one. Google thinks it's, it thinks that people are browsing the web inefficiently. So it's going to collect information from different resources and go, okay, well, here's the answer, and this is the only answer that you need, and don't even bother, this is the best. Have you heard of what they're doing? Do you have any thoughts about that? Are you preparing for that in any sort of way?
Yes, I have heard about it, of course. In terms of preparation, not so much. We partner with a digital agency, and I guess leaving that team to look into the impact that's going to have is sitting under their realm. Look, I'm indifferent to it, I suppose. Google know what they're talking about. And perhaps we are browsing inefficiently, and it really comes down to the responsibility of any consumer of content to look at as many platforms and avenues of information before forming an opinion. So Google is one place to do that, but there are a multitude of others. And I think, Google know what they're talking about. The millions and millions that go into research and development, they must be onto something, right?
Yeah, exactly. Tell us, Jess, how does a business obviously you're a business too, and you market your own, obviously you do marketing for everyone else, but what's important to your business in terms of, getting new business and marketing yourself? Where's the driver of business for you?
Relationships are absolutely number one for us, and I'm sure for the majority of other small businesses. Just about every client we've had come through the door has been a referral. We've done very little outward advertising ourselves. We haven't had to, and we don't really see a need to immediately look at that at all. I guess just taking a bold approach and not being afraid to reach out to connections when we feel the need to has been a real game changer for us. And the support when we first launched the business from our network was just unbelievable. And since then, the support continues. So I think, one, putting yourself out there and also nurturing relationships across entire networks just play such a vital role in the success of a business like ours anyway. And also, when it comes to relationships, we really have a no-asshole approach. And thankfully for us, we've managed to continue to work with clients that share the same values as us when it comes to, work-life balance and lifestyle and collaboration of ideas and respect. I think, relationships are the be-all.
The power of a referral, isn't it? When you get a subset of clients that you like working with and they like working with you, you generally get referrals of similar, like-minded people. And I think it comes back to, the power of some of the marketing that is done, particularly for small and medium-sized businesses, that, this is my personal belief. I don't know how, it certainly doesn't come from a marketing background, but, if we're a referral-driven business and some of the marketing that we do, whether it's, these sorts of conversations or discussions or what have you, it's really just cementing in that, yes, we are who we are, and we do, we have an opinion, and we've, we know our stuff. But you can't beat referral and doing a good job and great communication. It's, I'd imagine, I harp on it. Dex probably, rolls his eyes sometimes when I harp on about communication, but I'd imagine communication is probably the biggest thing in marketing with a client, is it? I mean, it's everything.
It is everything. And we have a very transparent approach. It's kind of an open door policy. We welcome all communication via text, email, Slack, whatever it is. We're always on our phones, and we are super casual. I guess we speak to our clients just like we would our friends and family. And that approach really works well for us. It's down to earth, direct, honest communication that isn't afraid of feedback, good and bad. It's just that collaboration. And I think businesses can really take a lot from that. Not being afraid of communication. And I know my generation is, I guess, known for this, but not being afraid of picking up the phone when it rings, or making those calls as well. So I absolutely agree. Communication in those relationships is absolutely vital.
Jess, last question before we wrap it up, and it'll be a fun one, unless Tom's got another question before. No?
I go for it, yep.
Okay. Ultimate job, ultimate client. What would it be?
I feel like I'm doing it now, Dex. Like I'm living the dream. My clients are an absolute dream, and I know that sounds so cheesy.
Is there a specific client?
Yeah, I think I would love to work with probably a really big brand name developer with a great budget. Probably someone like Beulah hasn't been on our list. That would be great. Beautiful projects, inspiring visions, stunning architecture. We're all about that kind of high-end elevation when it comes to property marketing. So probably, I mean, that's within reach. So it's not really. It's not
I think
really,
we both know that.
we do.
We do.
So that would be my initial thought as to, I guess, an immediate dream client.
Anything out of property? Or is property where it's at for you?
Property's where it's at for me and our business. So no, I don't think so. Property's where it's at, and it's a long game, and it's going to continue. So we're pretty confident with the pipeline of projects, however long this game rolls on for.
Thank you very much, Jess. I think that's it. Tom, did you have any more questions?
No, that was wonderful. Really appreciate your insights. I often think, and I've thought about it for a long time, this whole marketing thing, and it's sometimes a bit of a, I suppose, to the outside people that don't do it, it's a bit of a weird and wonderful world, and it's everyone's trying something. Every single business wants to increase their sales and do more, but it's nothing like putting through the hard yards, right? And you've shown us that, so I really appreciate your time. It was wonderful to chat.
A pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Jess, where can people contact you? If you want them to contact you, of course.
They can visit our website, harpsunnyside.com.au.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you. Thanks so much. See ya.
Bye.